coming. Drop down in the chat. Say hello. I'm on my way. As it's coming. Oh, shit. Hold on, y'all. I'm coming. All right, y'all. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. My apologies for the delay. All right. Y'all here? All right. All right. All right. My apologies for the delay, y'all. I am here, though. Okay. Child, you know it's always something. Hold on. Let me come on screen. Okay, can y'all see me? We are here. All right, let's go. Let's get ready to do this. Hi, everybody. So this is going to be chapters 3 through 7. We left off at chapter 3, and I think we started a little bit into chapter 4, but this is going to be chapters 3 through 7. And I'm gonna have to pick up the pace this week so we can try to finish this up this month. But hi, everybody. I'm going to put the link in the chat because you are free to come up if you want to talk and share. This is an open chat, an open forum. So I'm going to put the link in the chat. And remember the rules. You do not have to show your face. But I do have to verify you backstage before I bring you up. But anybody is more than welcome to come up and talk about the book. Let me be clear. We talking about the book. Okay. So what's up, Casmine? What's up, Sparkle? Hey, C Golden. Hey, China White. How you guys doing? So listen, just in case y'all not sure, this is the book that we are reading. It is Connie Briscoe, Big Girls Don't Cry. It looks like when you go on to, it looks like she's going to come out with a new book. She hasn't written in a while, and I'm curious as to why she hasn't written a book in a while. I'm not sure if she's had, things happen for different reasons, but I'm gonna reach out to her. I'm gonna send her an email to see if she would be interested and just coming on and talking to us. Like I told you guys, I think I told you guys before that Connie Briscoe is hearing impaired. But I'm sure that she knows how to communicate via Zoom and things like that. So I definitely would be interested in reaching out to her and seeing if she would be interested in coming to talk to us. But so first of all, for the people in the chat, have you guys read up to chapter 7 and or beyond, and are you enjoying the book? Tell me if you like it or not. I told you guys I love this book for many, many reasons. And as we get into these chapters, I'll share with you guys some of the reasons why I love this book as we continue to move on. So okay. Let me get to my notes. So I have 3 note cards. So let me get to the first note cards and we'll start from there. We will start from there. Okay. So where we left off, yep, I've read through chapter 7. I'm enjoying it. It's an easy read. It is an easy read, isn't it? You read the whole book in 2 days. It was so good. Listen, if I had the time, I would have read it in 2 days. But baby, listen, y'all know I've been ripping and running and all kinds of stuff. I'm actually taking a class at school, a class on the Holocaust through a partnership at my job. So a lot of my free time, I've been working on that. The class will be over at the end of next week, but I kind of got behind, so I'm trying to catch up on all the assignments. So that's kind of where my extra time has been going. So, but I read this, child. I read this during my lunchtime. I was sitting in my car today, so I said, I told my people we was gonna talk about it. We're gonna talk about it, and I'm trying to do better by keeping my promises on the book club. I'm trying to do better. It's your second time reading it, Sparkle? Yes, I've probably read it myself at least. I'm gonna say at least 3 times. This might either be my third or fourth time, but I know I've read it more than once. I love this book. I really, really do love this book. You're up to the college years. Oh, don't she make you? I don't want to talk ahead, but she makes you mad during them college years, baby. But we'll get there, honey. We're gonna get there. So let's start. We're still where we left off. We were getting ready to talk about the incident at the Chinese restaurant. Now, for those who don't remember or weren't here, or you just you're just happening upon us, this book is it's a book about Naomi, who's the main character, and her family. It's set in Washington D.C. in the 1960s. It goes through the 1960s all the way through. I would say by the end of the book she's probably like in her 40s, maybe a little bit older, but I definitely would say in her 40s, maybe early 50s. So you can, I guess, around 2000. The book goes to around 2000 ish. But she's her family's like, they're a middle class Black family in Washington D.C. in the 1960s, and this book, we're going to see in the next couple of chapters, we see issues of colorism, we see issues of classism within the Black community. And if any of you guys were, one day we were talking about Ready to Love DC. And I don't know if any of you guys were in that chat. And I was explaining to you guys how, and I can't speak for any other city because I haven't grown up in any other city. So I can't say that this is unique to Washington, D.C. But what I can say is this is my experience, right? D.C., Black D.C. has a whole culture. And within Black D.C., there's a lot of classism and there's a lot of colorism. And you see it in this book, and it's very accurately depicted in this book. And what I like about it is it's very accurately depicted, but it's tastefully depicted. Like, people aren't beat up. It's explained like this is just what they know. This is just their norm, right? So we have an incident at the Chinese restaurant, right? The dad wants to take the family out for Chinese food. He said, I want to go to this Chinese restaurant. I go there all the time after work for carry out. Hey, Lady V, I've never had a problem going there for carry out. And so let's go and let's sit down and let's sit down and have dinner at this Chinese restaurant. And they're going into Maryland. Now, you remember we already had an experience of them going into Virginia. So they're going into Maryland, and they're actually crossing a lot. Again, where this takes place is the part of DC where I grew up. Very much my neighborhood, the part of DC where I grew up. And they're crossing the line into Maryland. I grew up literally on the right on the Maryland. Like, I'm 2 blocks from the Maryland line. My parents live 2 blocks from the Maryland line. If I walk down the hill and cross the street, I'm in Maryland. And so the area that she's talking about is very much the area that probably would have been the neighborhood when my parents moved into that house, because my parents moved into that house in the 1960s, late 1960s. So this would have been what that dynamic would have been for them. So they get dressed up, right? You know, this pissed me off. I almost forgot what era this was. Child. Okay, China. They get dressed up in their Sunday best. You know, they didn't go in their jeans and beat up t-shirts or whatever. And they get to the restaurant, and the guy will not let them into the dining room. And he explains to the father, listen, I don't personally have a problem with you coming into the restaurant. However, I am afraid that if I let you in the restaurant, then I will lose my white customers. They will have a problem with it. And, you know, the mom tries to protect the kids from understanding what just happened when they turned away, and they're like, forget it, we ain't gonna eat here, don't worry about it. And the father says, no, they need to know. Like, they're old enough to understand what happened. And the father explains to them what happened. And here's where we saw it a little bit before, but here's where we really truly start seeing Joshua, the older brother, and his ideology. And I explain this to my students when I'm teaching my students about the civil rights era. You almost have early civil rights era, like the early 1960s, it's almost split in half. It's like the first 5 years and then the second 5 years, right? In the first 5 years of the civil rights era, you're dealing with the baby boomers. You're dealing with the Martin Luther Kings and the Rosa Parks and the people who came out of World War II, who were children of World War I, World War II, that era. And they're coming out of that first baby boomer, World War I baby boomer era. And then by the late 1960s, you're dealing with baby boomer number two. You're dealing with the World War II baby boomers, and they're a lot more radical. That's where you get your Black Power movement. That's where you get the Black Panthers and your H. Rap Browns and your Stokely Carmichaels, right? Stokely Carmichael started off with, SNCC and evolved and became a Panther. And so you start seeing that, and Joshua becomes that person. Joshua's like, we just need to burn this whole thing down. And he wasn't talking about the restaurant. He was just mean in general, right? We need to burn this whole damn thing down. And the father was like, no, no, no. We're working on it. Things are better, but they're not perfect, but they're better than they were. And Joshua was like, but we ain't moving fast enough for me. Like, we're moving too slow, right? You said your mother's generation, right? We're moving too slow. This ain't cool. And you start to see this maturity of Joshua to create his own ideology. Like, he's not following behind what the parents say. Oh, Martin Luther King, oh, he's the great white hope kind of thing. And it's no disrespect to Martin Luther King, right? Again, we could have a whole class about that because I don't want to go too far left because we're going to talk about Martin Luther King again. But even Martin Luther King wasn't as passive as Martin Luther King was publicly. Does that make sense? Privately, Martin Luther King was not passive at all. I think I've told you guys that before. When I took a class at Duke University a few summers ago, and we were studying the civil rights movement from the grassroots era. And I spoke to a lot of pioneers, a lot of people who were in the history books. I talked to SNCC members and people who had been on the ground and participated in Freedom Summer. People who's, it was a beautiful experience. But one of the things they told us was when you went to Martin Luther King's house, you had to be careful where you sat down because he had guns everywhere. He was not, hey, Zara, how you doing, baby? Well, I thank you for coming. I hope I don't give away too much, but thank you for coming. It's a good listen. Even if I tell you this, you still gonna want to read it because it's really, really good. Okay. And so we see that. We also for the first time in this conversation hear the word Dean. Dean is a friend of Joshua's who he was like, yeah, Dean is right. And Dean said this and Dean said that. So of course his parents were like, well, who is this Dean person? Right. So that's the first time we hear Dean. Dean is Joshua's friend. We're going to talk to Dean again. Now, we also found out in the last couple of chapters that Naomi found ballet and fell in love. Well, unfortunately, her ballet teacher had to close down. Now, they don't come right out and say it in the book, but the impression that I got, now y'all tell me if y'all got the impression or not. The impression I got was her ballet teacher had to shut down because the white folk left as the black kids started coming to this ballet class, because she said that the way she worded it was her ballet teacher started losing students. She said shortly after she got there, the ballet teacher started losing students, and she raised her prices to try to compensate for her dropping of her enrollment. And then she lost more students because she was too expensive. So eventually the ballet teacher had to close her ballet school. So I got the impression that maybe she said shortly after I got there. So I'm like, so maybe the fact that you and maybe some other, brown skinned girls showed up, but she doesn't specifically say that. So it could have been other things, but that's the impression I got. So her mother finds another dance class for her uptown. Now, if you live in the DC area, we know what uptown is. Uptown is like upper northwest. And she says it was, kind of out of their way. It was, on the other side of town from them. She said, but that's where basically a lot of the rich black folks live. Like, she understood the part of the neighborhood, and that's valid, right? We called it the Gold Coast. You assumed it was all black girls, or maybe it was, because she doesn't say anything about it, and she talks about race throughout the book. So I feel like if there was a race thing, she would have said it. So maybe it was just, people just didn't have the money. That's true. But that area, DC, up at 16th Street, they call it the Gold Coast. It's still a very elite neighborhood. It's still, people still refer to it as the Gold Coast. Mostly old black folk, like my mom and her family. I mean, my mom and her family, my mom and her sisters and stuff. They would probably call it the Gold Coast. But that's what it was referred to, and it's still beautiful neighborhoods and beautiful houses. My grandmother's ex-boyfriend child, my grandmother kept a man, okay? He lived on the Gold Coast, and he had a beautiful home up there. And I've known people that lived in that area, and I mean nice houses, very nice homes in that area, still well kept in that area. So she took her mom takes her to this new ballet class, and she said, I want you to, this was recommended by one of my coworkers, and I want you to look out for her daughter. Her daughter's name is Jennifer. And you can tell that mom respects Jennifer's mother, but it's also that's what I'm looking for, you guys. I don't want to say maybe a little intimidated. We found out later on that Jennifer's mom, who was also a teacher at the school, but she's a special ed teacher, which back then, for you to be a special ed teacher, you had to have a master's degree, which meant you had a little more education, you made a little more money, and you had a little more status, right? You had a little more status. And so I feel like Naomi's mom maybe felt a little, I don't want to use the word inferior because I think that's a strong word, but a little, and but I feel like she wanted Naomi to be friends with Jennifer because Jennifer, their family was a little bit higher up on the ranks, had a little bit more money, a little more status, and maybe she thought that would be a good connection for her daughter to have with Jennifer. So she gets into ballet class, and she was like, as soon as she get there, she was like, oh my goodness, like all the girls were light skinned with, quote unquote, good hair. She said even the darker skinned girls had hair down their butts, and she said she immediately fell out of place because she had just cut all her hair off. Now, the one thing we know about Naomi is stylish. They're very clear to let us know that Naomi is very stylish. Her haircuts are always stylish. Her clothes is always stylish. She makes a lot of her clothes. She has great fashion sense. She actually wants to open up a store with her best friend, Debbie. And so her haircut was, I'm sure, very chic. But of course, you walk into a room, you just cut all your hair off, and you walk into a room full of girls that look like Barbie dolls, black Barbies, and it's automatically like this. Okay. So she said, well, look out for Jennifer. I told her mom you were coming, so look out for her. She's going to probably introduce herself. Well, Jennifer ain't introduced herself, child. Jennifer actually, Naomi felt like Jennifer was purposely trying to avoid her, turning her head when her name was called and all of that. So, but the good thing was Naomi was more advanced of a dancer than the rest of them. So she immediately became what a teacher was asking her to help out with the other girls. So that sort of gave her a little status walking in the door. Like, she may not look like the rest of the girls, but she became the teacher's pet, in a good way. It wasn't in a suck up kind of way. Y'all, I'll do that later. I'll untangle my dad chain. Okay. So yeah, oh yeah, Jennifer was a hot tail, honey. Jennifer was a hot mess, honey. Jennifer had a boyfriend in college. Jennifer was wearing stockings behind her mama back. Jennifer was having sex. Oh yeah. She Jennifer was a hot to trot. Okay, she was a hot to trot. But after class was over, they actually did end up talking in the locker room, and Jennifer said, oh, my mom forgot to tell me. I didn't know you were coming. Oh, okay. Now, I'm going to be honest with y'all. I don't believe that. I believe she knew, but she was trying to wait it out before she put herself out there to introduce herself to somebody. She wasn't sure whether they was going to be cool or not. That's how I felt. But listen, I don't know, but that's how I felt, child. Naomi ends up going over Jennifer's house because Jennifer finds out that Naomi can sew, child, and Jennifer needs some help with this home ec class. Now, Jennifer goes to Wilson. Now, they've renamed Wilson because we found, Woodrow Wilson, we now know, we knew before, but child, nobody cared before. But now they, Woodrow Wilson, all of the high schools here in DC are named after people. Well, were most of them. Most of them, not all of them. Most of them are named after people, and most of the presidents, right? But Woodrow Wilson was, and it's still one of the better high schools in DC, and it's on that side of town, right? So she went to Woodrow Wilson, and Naomi went to McKinley. And McKinley is the high school, is my neighborhood high school. It's the high school I would have gone to had I gone to DC public schools. I didn't, but that was my neighborhood high school. That's where all my friends in the neighborhood went. They went to McKinley. And McKinley back then was considered a good school. It was considered a good school. It wasn't nothing to sneeze at. It was a good school too. People wanted to go to McKinley. My mom actually wanted to go to McKinley. She ended up going to the school that's over by her where she grew up, but she wanted to go to McKinley. But the bus ride would have been too much. She said it would have been really hard for her to get back and forth with the amount of buses she would have had to change and stuff like that. And my grandparents had a car, but both of them worked, and so they didn't have the luxury of being able to pick her up and drop her off at school. So she ended up going to her neighborhood high school. Anyway, but we find out through this new friendship with Jennifer don't like Debbie. Jennifer already knows who Debbie is, which is already interesting that she knows who Debbie is, but she said she didn't know who Jennifer was. I mean, who Naomi was, and she don't like her. And so Naomi is caught between her new friendship with Jennifer that's exciting, and they have money, and they have this this little lifestyle going on, and her best friend Debbie, who Debbie has developed. She got rid of her glasses and she got contacts. And she was asking, had Naomi ever let somebody touch and suck on her breasts and stuff like that. But we also found out that Debbie is darker skinned. Debbie is from a lower income. Debbie lives in the apartments on the other side of Rhode Island Avenue, which are, it wasn't the projects, but it was definitely low income, right? And Debbie also has herself a little boyfriend, Gene. Now, Gene trying to get in Debbie's pants too. And Debbie, she talking about letting him go. And of course, he told her, well, you can't get pregnant your first time, which we all know, child. Now we know that's a lie, child. But even if it wasn't a lie, what happens the second and the third time? Like, I always wonder when guys say, well, you can't get pregnant the first time. Okay, even if that were true, what about the second and the third time? You know what I'm saying? Did she already know Debbie, or did she just assume that Debbie wouldn't fit in? Or was that coming later in the book? She knew who Debbie was because she said it. She said she knew who Debbie was, but it just we get more information later on about it. But she did know who Debbie was. C. Golden, honestly, I don't remember the specifics, but we do find out later on. I mean, I remember some of the specifics, but we do find out later on what Jennifer's issue was with Debbie. We'll get to that. But in this moment, it was a lot of colorism, a lot of classism, with Jennifer basically just telling Naomi, well, I don't think she would fit in, because Jennifer ends up inviting Naomi to a party at her house. And she's like, well, can I bring Debbie? And she was like, I don't know if Debbie would fit in. Naomi doesn't quite understand what that is, but she knows, hey, Pinky Tiki, but she knows there's a problem. She knows, she knows there's an issue. Right. She knew Debbie. Right. She did. She knew who Debbie was. So we definitely see the colorism and the classism going on in the book. In the book. All right. So let me get to my next note card. Let me put that back in here so I can keep up with my notes. Okay. So my next note card. Okay, I talked about Debbie's boyfriend. Naomi had a little flirt thing going on with Steve, but that never really went anywhere. So Jennifer's party. Let's talk about Jennifer's party. So Jennifer invites Naomi to the party, and this the same night that the parents are already going out, they're going to a party. So they were like, well, of course, the mom was down for her, because at first she was like, no, you don't need to be going to no party, until she found out it was Jennifer's. And I like the mom, but I do feel like the mom was a little bit of, again, I don't want to use too strong of words, but maybe a little social climbing, maybe a little bit of social climbing, maybe feeling like, well, if my daughter becomes friends with her daughter, maybe we'll get invited to their home for dinner, to their parties, we'll be invited into their class level. That's how I felt a little bit of it. But then I feel like later on in the book, later on, even in within these chapters, I feel like the mom realized maybe all that's glitter ain't gold. Maybe she started seeing Jennifer and maybe realizing that maybe she didn't want Naomi necessarily so close to Jennifer, because as we get to the end of the chapter 7, her mom is kind of getting on Naomi about letting her friendship with Debbie fall by the wayside, and listen, don't give your friends away, and that kind of thing too. So that's why I don't want to be too harsh on the mom, because I don't feel like it was social climbing with any malice intent. But I do think it was well, if she gets in good with them, she'll be exposed, she'll get invited. Maybe we will too, but I don't think it was with that nasty, I'm throwing my daughter out there so I can go to the best parties. I don't know. I didn't get that impression. But I felt like maybe the mom was thinking, but if I do get invited by proxy, I ain't gonna be mad, if that makes sense. You know what I'm saying? That's what you was thinking, see, Golden. Okay, so we on the same wavelength a little bit. Okay. Um, so the family says, the parents say, listen, you can go to the party, but Joshua has to take you. And Joshua was like, I got my own party to go to. Me and Dean are going to this party. And the parents were like, well, I tell you what, we'll let you drive the new car if you take your sister to her party. And they had just gotten a new Mustang. So, of course, Joshua was like, well, hell yeah. If I get to drive the new Mustang, let me reevaluate this. So he agrees to take her to the party. But he, on the way, and this is so silly, in 2021, or it's 2022, child, almost 2023. But it's so silly in today's world to see this. But as they're getting ready to leave, the brother, Joshua, runs out to a tree and picks up a brown paper bag. Now, of course, the first time I read this, I was like, oh my gosh, did he pick up a gun, or him and Dean about to go do something? Was it drugs? Like, I'm thinking, so baby, it's a dashiki. He's hiding the fact that he's wearing a dashiki to this party because he doesn't want his parents, he's not allowed to wear one, because again, it's that mentality, dashikis were connected to, that whole counterculture of the late 1960s, right? The afros, like he wasn't allowed to wear an afro. Dean had an afro, but his parents would not let Joshua get an afro, right? Wearing a dashiki, it was all taboo. And it's so weird now to think that, the parents felt like this was a bad thing for their kids to want to wear dashiki and want to have an afro. And again, it's with no malice. It just was the just where our culture was at that time, right? So Naomi wants a dashiki. And he was like, well, this dashiki cost me $10. Would you? And she was like, $10? I ain't nobody about to. She said, listen, let me just give me the money to buy the material. I'll make my own dashiki. Because again, we remember she's, right, the generational differences. They wear you out, see, Golden. But listen, towards the end of the book, when you get towards the end of the book, it's good. In your book club, do you have chapters or intervals in books that you have call-ins? Just wondering. The link is up there. Y'all can't see the link? Did the link go away? I thought I had the link pinned to the top of the chat. The link's not pinned? Hold on. The answer to your question, Zara, is yes. Y'all can come on here at any time if y'all want to come and talk. At any time, y'all are welcome. But hold on. Because it should be at the top, but if it's not, I'll pin it to the top. Oh, it's not pinned. Okay, hold on. I'm pinning it now. Hold on. Oh, it's not pinned. Okay, hold on. I'm pinning it now. Uh-oh, can't pin it. Child. Okay. The link is at the top. Listen, I ain't a mod on my own daggone backup channel. I'm gonna have to. Child, I gotta make myself a mod. I can't pin the comment. I'm gonna have to make child. I have to make myself a daggone mod. I don't want to hold up the chat doing that now, but remind me I gotta make myself a damn mod so I can do that. I'm not even a mod. I don't know why it won't let me do it though, because I should still be able to pin it. I'm tripping. I should still be able to pin it. I don't have to be a mod. It's my damn channel. Why won't it let me? All right, y'all. I'll figure it out. It won't let me pin it. I don't know why it won't let me pin it, but the link is up there, Zara. If you scroll back up, but I'll drop it again. I'll drop it in the chat again, but it's up there. I don't know why. All right, y'all. I gotta figure out why I can't because I shouldn't have to be a mod on my own channel. So I'll figure it out. But for now, there it is. I don't know why it won't let me pin it, but I thought I had pinned the thought I had pinned it, but I didn't. All right. So Joshua tells Naomi, he said, listen, if you teach me how to bop, then I'll give you the money. And she was like, you mean give me like you won't loan me? You gonna let me have it? He was like, I will give you the money if you'll teach me how to bop. Now, bop is a type of dancing. It's similar to like hand dancing, right? It's very similar to hand dancing. And we had already learned earlier in the book that Joshua could do a lot of things well, but dancing was not one of them. Okay. We had already talked about. Okay, yeah, I always do call-ins on the book club because I definitely want y'all to be able to come up and share and talk because it'll be a good conversation. But you can always talk from the chat too. But yeah, Zara, yeah, when you catch up, by all means, come on up, babes, come on up. And so he pulls over into the parking lot down to the Safeway, child, and at first she was like, I ain't about to stand out here in the middle of the daggone parking lot and dance with you. That's crazy. But they end up doing it, and child, Joshua got 2 left feet. So Dean says, listen, let me show you how it's done. And Dean and Naomi, they get to dancing, and they are like perfect. They are in sync. Dean know how to bop. She know how to bop. And they are bopping all over the parking lot until Joshua says, hold up. Y'all supposed to be teaching me. So he gets in there and they have a good time. And it's a moment, right? It's a moment, brother, sister moment. It's a moment with her and Dean and all of that. Because that was her first time really meeting Dean. She had heard about Dean, but she had never met Dean. So she goes to the party. And of course, if you went to a house party, I went to house parties in the 80s and 90s, and it sounded like it was pretty much the same thing going on at this 60s party. You're in the basement, the lights are out, people is dancing, bumping and grinding, doing what they do. We meet Jennifer's college boyfriend, and Jennifer is trying to set her up with some folks at the party. But she ends up catching the eye of Merlin, who's a little redhead thing. He goes to school with Jennifer. They get to talking and dancing. And, again, the fact that she's a great dancer, she started dancing and everybody wanted to dance with her to the point where she had to be like, hold up. Woo, child. I need a break. But her and Merlin started talking. And right before, all of a sudden, they stop the music and they make an announcement that Naomi Jefferson, I think that's her last name, your father is waiting for you upstairs. So, of course, she is mortified because, number one, she's mortified because she was like, she had to be gone by a certain time. Joshua was like, I'm picking you up because I'm picking you up, dropping you off at home and going back to my party because her curfew, his curfew was later than her curfew. And she's like, my intention was to be upstairs because I knew he would do something crazy like that. But I don't want no parts of house parties at child. You know that, right, Lady V? It was hilarious. I was the same way in middle school trying to practice dancing before the party. Right. You had to get all the right moves. You had to be ready for the party, right? Yeah. The second thing was, of course, she knew it wasn't her father. She knew it was her brother being funny and embarrassing her, right? Yeah, it was funny. I fell out too, child. You knew it was her brother. Right, it was her brother. But it reminded me, let me tell y'all a quick little story time. DC, we have go-go music, and you would go to the go-go's. And I remember one of my ex-boyfriends played in one of the go-go bands. And so we went to the go-go. And when the go-go was over, of course, me and my friends, we were sitting there, we were talking to the band because at the time he played for a small go-go band, but he was sitting in for one of the bigger, like one of the more well-known go-go bands in DC. And so, of course, we thought we was doing something. I was like, that's my boo, played for the big go-go band. And my friends, so we were all sitting there talking to the band. The lights were on. The gym was empty, because we was out of school. The gym was empty. Baby, I look up. Here come my daddy. Came up in the gym because I had lost track of time. My father was picking us up, but I had lost track of time. We were in there talking, being cute, right? Baby, my father had on his pajamas and some slippers and a coat because it was winter time and a coat over top of his pajamas. And he came in there and he was like, he called me. He said, "Come on here, girl." And I was so embarrassed. I don't know what I was more embarrassed about, the fact that my father came and got me, or the fact that he had on slippers in his pajamas. And I know people nowadays go out in their pajamas all the time, but I was so embarrassed, y'all. It was fun, child. It was fun dating him for a while, child. It was. Um, but yes, it was. Ooh, I was so embarrassed. So that reminded me of that. So, it was another moment after the party because Joshua took Naomi for ice cream. And it was another good moment because you see their relationship, and you see their relationship a lot of times they're at odds. But this was one of the few moments in the book where you see them in a good, like, they love each other, but they're brother and sister, so they argue all the time, they pick at each other. So when I say at odds, I don't mean like they don't like each other at odds. I just mean they're, that pick brother and sister thing. But he took her out for ice cream and they talked about the party, and she asked him about Merlin because she ended up giving him her number. And he was like, listen, don't, if he's interested, he gonna call. And do not, don't let him, give you the okey doke about he can't wait and his biology and he needs to have sex and all that stuff. He was like, if he's really interested, he'll wait. He'll respect your boundaries. And, don't be chasing after him, because she wanted to go back to the party. She was like, I want to go back. I want to go back. And he was like, because if you go back, you're going to look desperate. He going to know you came back to see him. So no, you left. You gave him your number and let him call you. And when he calls you, then you talk to him. And it was a good moment because they had a great conversation. He was being big brother, but he wasn't being mean or anything like that. And it was a moment. So that was a really great night for them, but it was also a great night in the book. Okay. If you've read ahead, you know what I mean. Okay. All right, my last card. Let me get to my last note card, child. Didn't that happen on Family Matters? Harriet dragged Laura out of a party with curls in a row. You know what? It might have happened, child. See, look, art imitating life, because see, my dad was always for lack of a better word, always the chauffeur. For whatever reason, my dad was always the father. A lot of my friends, unfortunately, didn't have fathers. So my dad was always the father. My best friend's father actually was deceased, and a couple of my other friends, their father just wasn't, in the home. So my father became the de facto dad. So I mean, he treated all of us like that, like my friends, all like his kids. So he talked to them the same way he talked to me, and he told all of us to get our ass out that gym, or he was leaving us. And if I remember, it was actually snowing. I mean, it was flurrying. It wasn't snowing heavy, but that's how cold it was. It was actually flurrying, like snowing when we left. And I was like, and I looked at the time. My dad had been sitting there for like 30, 40 minutes. Whoo, that thing. We still talk about that one, child. We still talk about that one. That's good. Your dad was consistent. I didn't have a dad around. I appreciate my friends' dads. Oh, see, yeah. My dad took us. He was the chauffeur, child. My father always took us to the party. I remember another time we went to this party and we were drinking. We were drinking, and I remember my dad picked us up, and we were trying. I know he must. I've never asked my father, but I'm gonna see if he remember. I never asked him. I know my father know we had been drinking, because you know how you try so hard to pretend like you not drinking, baby. I know we were in that car. We had the window rolled down. We was talking out the window because I was like, y'all, I want him to smell it on our breath. We kept giggling. I know he knew we had been drinking. And this was in high school. It was before I got my driver's license, because after I got my driver's license, most of the time I could drive. But I remember this was in high school, maybe ninth grade, maybe even eighth grade. Because I remember whose party it was. It was Jules' party. And her parents, I want to say her parents were out of town. And it was like her big sister or something was there. Anyway, all I know was we was drinking. Child. Yeah, because Thomas was in the car with us. Skeeter was in the yeah, because he dropped Skeeter off. Baby, we was listen, and we weren't like drunk, but we had been drinking, and we were kids. We ain't, you know. But that thing, so I'm gonna have to ask my dad about that, see if he remembered that time picking us up, and we were all because also the other thing too, my dad had a van. My dad had one of those I guess now they call them conversion vans where it had like captain's chairs in it and it had a couch in the back. So it was big enough for us to pile in. That was another thing too. He could take 8 or 9 people. And that was another thing. I'd be like, Dad, if like they would all meet at my house. Like everybody would meet at my house and then my father would take us. Child. What were y'all doing? No, we were drinking liquor. No, we was drinking liquor at that party. Liquor. Cause I remember we was like, but we was doing it. Child. I gotta ask my friends about that, see if they remember that party. That thing. Because we thought we were doing something. That was probably the first time I'd had like a drink at a party. Like I had snuck drinks and stuff like that at little odds and places here. They're like cookouts and stuff like that. But that was the first time I'd had like drink. Yeah, that was funny. Anyway, see, y'all be letting me go way off. Y'all be letting me do this. Whoop. Anyway, we almost at the end. So her and Merlin started dating. They went out on a date. Dad wasn't trying to let her go, but Mom and Joshua sort of played the Jedi mind trick on him because Joshua was like, well, if you say no and you don't let her date, she's just going to do it behind your back. And Naomi was like, on one hand, I appreciated that Joshua had my back. But on the other hand, I was like, Joshua, why you telling Daddy that I'm going to do like, why would you say that? And the mom sort of jumped in because he was like, well, you can't date till you're 16. She was like, I'll be 16 in 9 months. He was like, and in 9 months, you can date. She was like, well, he'll be done moved on to somebody else in 9 months. And he was like, oh, well, he ain't the one. Like her father was like, oh, well, then he ain't the one. But they were able to convince her to to go ahead and go on a date. So Merlin took her to the movies. They went to see Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. And then he kissed her on the way home and asked her to be his girlfriend. So they started dating real tough, right? So Naomi's dating Merlin. Jennifer got her boyfriend in college. And Debbie has got, she's dating Gene, guy named Gene. And her and Debbie really have not, their friendship they were best friends and they really drifted apart to the point where they don't hardly talk at all anymore. She said that she tried to get Jennifer and Naomi and Debbie in the same room one time and it did not go well. And so she said, I just stopped doing that. And she basically was hanging out with Jennifer more for a couple of reasons. One, Merlin goes to the same school as Jennifer, so I'm keep an eye out on my man, kind of thing. And then I do think subconsciously there was that whole Jennifer had access to had access, right? Zara, I'm trying to be consistent with Mondays. Today, I know today's Tuesday, but I'm trying to be consistent with Mondays at 5:00. So I can go like as soon as I get home from work. So the day that Martin Luther King was assassinated, she said all hell broke loose. Of course, Joshua being the type of person he was, of course, he was like, burn it all down. They killing all our leaders, down with the white man kind of thing. And of course, her parents were mourning it because that was Martin Luther King. They rioted in DC. So they talk about the fact that, Joshua said he saw where they were setting fires over on 14th Street and him and Dean were out there. And Joshua gets into a really huge fight with their parents. And I love the fact that, he talked to them crazy. Don't get me wrong. He did talk to them crazy, but I love the fact that the mother was like, you won't let him just talk to us like that? And the father was like, that's a Black man with repressed feelings of what a Black man goes through in America. We're going to let him have this. Like, we're going to let him have this. And I could appreciate the fact that the father recognized that, yes, he's being disrespectful, but he's processing a lot. And as a Black man in America, he's processing a lot of things. So I can respect that. But of course, Naomi was like, for real though, like y'all just gonna let him talk to y'all crazy? Like that's what we doing. Joshua actually ends up going away to Northwestern for the summer. Him and Naomi have a tearful goodbye. He is going to go to Northwestern in the fall, but he has to take another class. So he's going to be going to, so that's what's going on there. She gets a letter from Cornell. Now, Cornell was her first choice of colleges, but it was also Debbie's first choice as well. So she calls Debbie because she's excited, and she said, "Did they invite you to come up?" And when she calls, Debbie mama answers the phone with an attitude. Don't even recognize Naomi's voice. That's how long it's been since Naomi had called the house, because the mama didn't even recognize her voice anymore. And at first her mother wasn't gonna let Naomi talk to Debbie, but when she found out it was Naomi, she was like, "Oh, well, I guess you could talk to her for a few minutes." So the minute Debbie gets on the phone, Naomi knows something. She's like, "Girl, what is wrong? Like, your mama sound mad and don't want." And she was like, "I can't talk about it." And she was like, "Girl, what are you talking about?" She was like, "Oh, you got time for me now?" And they have this whole conversation about Naomi not being Jennifer's friend. Not being a good friend of Debbie. And Naomi is like, "But you always with Gene." And she was like, "I'm not always with Gene." And she was like, pretty much." And she said, "Well, the last couple of times I called you, you were busy." And she was like, "Well, how many times have you hung out with Jennifer? I heard she got a new car." And Naomi was like, of course, in her head, she was like, "We've been hanging out in that new car, But she says, so Debbie starts crying on the phone. She says, "Girl, I'm on my way over there." She was like, "Don't come over here." She said, "I'm on my way." And so she shows up, and Debbie's mom opens up the door. And she even says Debbie's apartment building seemed a little dingier. It seemed a little more run down than she had remembered it, because she had been hanging up on the Gold Coast, right? And you become more aware of things when you see what the life is like over here. You become a little bit more aware of what's going on down there. And she goes in there, and of course, Debbie is really upset. Yeah, Casmine, that was harsh too. That Naomi was trying to go to a party the day that Martin Luther King died, as if like, I don't see what the problem is. Like, me going to a party ain't gonna change the fact that he died. He still died. Yeah, that was a little disheartening to see that she didn't get it. Her and Joshua got into it. I kind of jumped over that, but her and Joshua got into it really bad too. When he was like, "Are you serious? Like, really?" And he kind of yelled at her. But he came back and apologized, but he was like, "Listen, you got to understand what the significance of this is and how serious this is." Unfortunately, that's a theme with Naomi through most of the book, that Naomi kind of don't get it. But when it comes to that kind of stuff, not all of the book, she gets it eventually. But hey, that's my box. Oh, that's my candles. Oh, I'm sorry, y'all. Thank you. Ooh, thank you. Yeah. So then Debbie confides in her, and Debbie tells her, "Listen, you and Jennifer can go on up to Cornell, but I won't be going to Cornell because of I done messed around and got pregnant. Boyfriend wants her to keep the baby." She said that we don't have the money for an abortion, because this was years before abortion was even legal, much less covered by anybody's insurance. So she was like, "We ain't got the money for that." So my mama said, "I'm gonna have the baby and put it up for adoption. So I may be able to start school a year late, but I'm not gonna be able to go with y'all and do all of the high school things." Now, back then, pregnancy was not treated. We know that, but like I remember my mom telling me about a girl that was in high school with her, and she was pregnant, and they wouldn't even let her walk across the stage to get her diploma. Like, it was literally at the end of their senior year. They were graduating, and my mom said that she wasn't even really showing yet. But the fact that the school knew she was pregnant, they would not even let her walk across the stage. And my mom, she graduated, but so that's where chapter 7 ends. And so we definitely see that there's going to be a crossroads with Naomi and Debbie even deeper. Naomi sort of becomes an only child, de facto, because brother's out of the house, and she's getting older. She said Merlin is already pressuring her for sex, child. But I think this little announcement from Miss Debbie might change things, because she was about to give it up. But I don't know. That would have made me clamp my legs, honey. That would have made me close my legs up real tight. So we're going to try to get chapters 8 through 14 by Monday. I'm going to try my best to to have all those chapters read. Again, it's not because the book is a hard read, it's just my schedule. But we're going to be back on Monday to do chapters 8 through 14. So I hope y'all come back. I'm glad to see that y'all are enjoying the book. And I will see y'all on, like I said, I'm going to try to make it Monday. And I think we are gonna have a tribe meeting, I believe. Yeah, 8 through 14. Yeah. Because I was trying to do 1 through 7 and then 7 through 14 or 18. However I did it, child. Let me put my note cards back in the book, child. Put my note cards back in here so I can keep up with all my notes. Okay. When I found out Debbie was pregnant, my heart broke. I was so pissed at her boyfriend. It shows how naive we were as teens. Ain't no telling what that guy was telling her. Well, he told her you couldn't get pregnant the first time. If you pull it out, you can't get pregnant. And Naomi was like, Naomi went and did the research, honey. She said that ain't even that don't work. That is a lie. So she said, that is a lie. And I was upset too, but I saw the writing on the wall. The minute she was talking about that, they were talking about her dating Gene, and he was pressuring her for sex. I said, I knew one of them was going to get pregnant, and I didn't think it was going to be Naomi. Jennifer family probably would have went and got her a damn abortion. So I figured Debbie would be the one that would, end up having the baby. But we will see how it all works itself out as we move forward in the book. Until then, I will talk to you guys later. I'm going to eat my dinner and be ready for the tribe meeting. I'll talk to y'all later. Mwah. Peace.